Hello and welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin today by taking a look at some of the stories that made headlines over the weekend. On Sunday, West African leaders met in the Ghanaian capital, Accra, to discuss how to respond to the Mali coup. Assimi Goïta, who was named interim Malian president after leading the takeover last week, was in attendance after arriving on Saturday. Goïta was greeted on the tarmac by Ghanaian Foreign Minister ahead of the ECOWAS meeting.
The recent happenings in Mali have again raised anxiety levels in the region and have somewhat shaken the hope many had of a peaceful, successful transition, which will result in the return to a democratic government in Mali and ultimately and hopefully the political stability of the country.
The coup prompted sanctions warnings from foreign powers, which fear it will derail a promised transition back to democracy following another coup last August led by Assimi Goïta, an army colonel.
I'm thus using this opportunity to reiterate, on behalf of ECOWAS, our continued commitment to the peaceful transition in Mali with a basic goal of restoring democratic government and working for the stability of Mali and of our region.
ECOWAS closed borders with landlocked Mali and halted financial transactions in response to last year's coup. The sanctions led to a 30% slump in imports before they were lifted last October. On Saturday, Eastern Libya Commandant Khalifa Haftar presided over a military parade in Benghazi on the 7th anniversary of his operation to drive Islamist militants out of the city. Haftar and an audience of officials watched military personnel and vehicles parade in formation at Benghazi's Benina airport. Haftar and his Libyan National Army still hold sway in the east of the country, nearly a year after their 14-month offensive to seize the capital collapsed. Libya's government of national unity was sworn into office in March, taking over from the two rival administrations in east and west that have run Libya for years as part of a UN-facilitated peace effort. Still on Saturday, French President Emmanuel Macron paid tribute to Nelson Mandela during a visit to Mandela's Foundation in Johannesburg at the close of a visit to southern Africa. Referring to Mandela as Madiba, Macron said he wanted to express his respect for Mandela's achievements and what he did for South Africa, Africa, and for humanity as a whole.
I wanted to pay tribute to Madiba and a few minutes before leaving the country to express my respect with a lot of humility and indeed to pay tribute to his achievements and what he did for the country, but not just the country, the continent and humanity.
Macron was given a tour of the Foundation's exhibition and Mandela's private archival collections, the Foundation said on its website. The visit came at the end of a trip to South Africa and Rwanda, where President Macron said he hoped for forgiveness for France's role in the country's 1994 genocide. Finally, on Sunday, Egypt's Suez Canal Authority announced the captain of Ever Given was fully responsible for the grounding of the huge cargo vessel that blocked the canal for 6 days in March. In April, the Egyptian authorities seized Ever Given, one of the largest container ships in the world. The 400-meter-long, 200,000-ton giant vessel ran aground across the canal on March 23rd and halted the canal's traffic for 6 days. On May 25th, Egypt offered to cut its compensation claim down from $916 million to $550 million against the impounded vessel after the SCA obtained the estimated financial value of the goods on the ship. To our main stories for today, leaders of the West African group ECOWAS have suspended Mali's membership from the bloc following last week's military coup. That's the second in 9 months. The coup leader and now interim President Colonel Assimi Goïta attended the meeting in the Ghanaian capital, Accra. Ghana's Foreign Minister, Shirley Bochwe, told reporters that the bloc had called on Mali to nominate a new civilian prime minister immediately and also to adhere to an 18-month transition period and to hold presidential elections next February. Ghana also says the stability of Mali is critical if West Africa is to hold back terrorist activities from the region. Colonel Goita seized power after ordering the arrest of the transitional president Ba Ondo and Prime Minister Mokhtar Ouane. Well, let's get more on this story from an African affairs analyst, Achike Chude. Thank you so much for speaking to us on the program. Let me begin by asking, what do you make of Mali's suspension from ECOWAS?
Well, I think it was inevitable that the ECOWAS had to respond in a way. But I think if you look at the response, one would call it a very tame or timid response. I think ECOWAS finds itself in a very difficult situation. Obviously, Goita, who has appointed himself a president, would seem to be a cog in the wheel of progress. And it would appear that the ECOWAS leadership doesn't exactly know how to handle him. I think essentially because of the crisis of insurgency in Mali. And the fact that the central government is needed to also at least continue the fight against the insurgency, which is represented by the continuous presence of Goita. So it's a dilemma. I'm sure that, of course, you will notice that ECOWAS stopped short of imposing sanctions. I think this was the most that they could do under the circumstances right now, because I can tell that one would have expected something much stronger, but it would appear that Goita has done all of his, has a different understanding of the dynamics that are playing out in Mali, and believes that this power grab that
All right, just before we try and reconnect with Achike Chude, let's just listen to Ghana's Foreign Minister Shirley Bochwe, who was speaking to reporters after the meeting on Sunday.
To suspend Mali from ECOWAS, but at the same time work with ECOWAS to ensure that the transition is on track towards the end goal, which is to return the people of Mali to democratic rule. One of the decisions of the heads of state is that they should ensure that in the next few days there is a civilian prime minister who will form a government, a transitional government, for the rest of the period. As you're aware, we have only about 8 months left.
There you have the Ghanaian foreign minister speaking about, the demands from Mali and what they should do within 8 months. All right, then, seems our conversation on Mali would have to be on a hold. Our guest is no longer available. Let's move on to other stories. However, police in Zambia have started arresting members of the Resident Doctors Association for trying to plan a strike after their leaders announced that they would begin a strike on Friday. The Resident Doctors Association of Zambia is demanding the recruitment of 500 doctors and payment of salary arrears, among other issues. Now, that's according to the president of the association, Dr. Brian Sampa. They are also demanding the creation of new positions for senior doctors who have continued to receive salaries at the level of junior doctors. Mr. Sampa's practicing license has also been suspended following his strike announcement. The police chief of Zambia, Kakoma Kanjagia, has also warned him that he would be arrested if he continues addressing his members via Zoom meetings. South Africa says it's increasing its COVID-19 restrictions to try and fight a surge in recent infections. A nightly curfew is to be extended, meaning non-essential shops, bars and restaurants will be forced to close by 10 p.m. President Cyril Ramaphosa also says further restrictions are necessary to ensure that health facilities are not overwhelmed. The country has recorded more than 56,000 deaths and more than 1.5 million more than any other African nation.
Headed towards a third wave of infections. We do not yet know how severe this wave will be or for how long it will last. According to the scientists that advise government, the severity of this third wave will largely be determined by the amount of contact each of us has with other people. This means that each of us needs to think about all the people we come into contact with each day and do everything we can to limit those contacts. Sometimes it is unavoidable to be in contact with other people, as we are all human beings. Contact that happens at work, or when we go shopping, or where we are in public transport. In such cases, it is important that we strictly observe all the health protocols by wearing a mask, keeping our distance from others, and ensuring proper ventilation. But wherever possible, we should cut down on our contacts during this time. This may mean postponing social engagements, avoiding public spaces, and not traveling unless absolutely necessary. Gatherings are the greatest sources of transmission, whether it is weddings, funerals, social parties, religious services, political meetings, or simply gatherings of family and friends.
Meanwhile, Egypt will lift restrictions put in place to prevent the spread of coronavirus from Tuesday. Restaurants will now be allowed to operate after the May 6 order for them to close by 9 p.m. local time. Businesses in Egypt have summer and winter working hours with closure time ranging from 10 p.m. local time to midnight. The restrictions were imposed after a rise in coronavirus cases. The country has more than 260,000 virus cases, including more than 15,000 deaths. Burundi's President Evariste Ndayishimiye has arrived in Kenya for a two-day visit. This is Mr. Ndayishimiye's sixth foreign visit in less than a year in power. His predecessor, the late Pierre Nkurunziza, only left Burundi once during his last term in office when he went by road to neighboring Tanzania. In a statement, his spokesperson says Mr. Ndayishimiye's visit to Kenya is an opportunity to strengthen brotherhood relationships between Burundians and Kenyans. Since winning the presidency in June 2020, Mr. Ndayishimiye has been keen to revive diplomatic relations after Burundi isolated itself from May 2015 following a failed coup in the country. Burundian President Evariste Ndayishimiye is in Kenya for a two-day visit. Joining us now for more details on the presidential state visit is Kenyan journalist Cyrus Ombati to tell us more. Thank you so much for speaking to us, Cyrus. Let's begin with how Kenyans are reacting to the visit of the Burundian president.
The visit by the Burundian president and Mr. Evariste Ndayishimiye and the First Lady has come at a time when the country is observing its Madaraka Day, which is a national holiday in Kenya. Most Kenyans are excited to see him around because he comes with a lot of expectations in terms of investments in Burundi. I remember Burundi is a kind of a landlocked country, which means that it depends on a country like Kenya, which have a port to import their goods, and being more poorer than Kenya, many Kenyans expect that they will be exporting many goods and services to the country. In fact, when he arrived in Nairobi, he flew direct to Kisumu, which is where the president is now spending his time, ahead of Madaraka Day, is a celebration which is being observed tomorrow. So it was received at State House in Kisumu, and then they have gone together to Lake Victoria to launch some ships there and at the shipyard, whereby goods coming from outside the country through the Indian Ocean and are loaded to the standard gauge railway to Kisumu. They are offloaded to through Lake Victoria, then they're taken to Kampala. From Kampala, they can be driven to maybe Burundi. So many Kenyans are expecting more deals to be signed between the two countries, in as much as there could be differences here and there in terms of language barrier. Burundi is a French-speaking country, but then they speak Swahili, which also is spoken in Kenya. Kenya is an English-speaking country, but they share Swahili language. Both countries are members of East African Community, which have so many agreements in terms of import and exports. Then we expect that after the visit, maybe we'll see more doctors, teachers, many people in the service industry getting jobs in Burundi. Because you see, Burundi, you can't compare it in Kenya in terms of development. So many Kenyans, especially where we have more surplus of people like teachers, doctors, nurses, they're expecting to get more opportunities in Burundi in the coming days.
Well, with this visit, what do you think both parties are hoping to achieve? You know, what is the significance of this visit to both parties?
The recent years, we have been seeing a norm whereby Kenyan president invites foreign dignitaries to participate in national holidays. To give speeches there. In the past, we have seen presidents from either South Sudan, Uganda, and the regional countries come to participate in national holidays in Kenya. So the coming of Evariste to Kenya is actually seen as the tradition which was introduced by President Kenyatta. But then it has a significance, a big one, because you see, Evariste came with his cabinet, came with his first lady, and there are many deals which are being signed at State Lodge in Kisumu. So Madaraka Day may be kind of a smoke screen, but then the main agenda was his arrival today, because he's here today in Kenya in Monday, and then tomorrow, then that's when he leaves for Burundi. Burundi is still a fertile market for Kenyan goods. They may include milk. They may include services which maybe were rendered by many Kenyans who are educated here. But then Madaraka Day is a day when Kenya actually got its, can say, independence in a way. So Madaraka means power. They obtained power in terms of from the colonialists. So it has a significance because it comes from the East African region. Burundi is a member of EAC. So it's a symbolic visit which has so much kind of sentiment among Kenyans, and we are waiting to see how he speaks tomorrow from Kisumu, which will be televised by the national broadcast and other private stations. Well, it's a holiday, but then many Kenyans have been beaten by this COVID pandemic, but then they have no option other than to watch and listen.
Well, thank you, Kenyan journalist Sarah Sombati, and do enjoy your Madaraka holiday. Moving on to other stories, the number of people killed in 2 attacks in the east of the Democratic Republic of Congo has risen to at least 50. Now, they are thought to have been carried out by gunmen from the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, one of dozens of armed groups operating in the region. The area has, however, also seen violence between 2 ethnic groups. One attack was in Boga and the other in Chabi. Both villages are in the eastern Congo's Ituri province, close to the border with Uganda. Eyewitnesses say armed men on motorbikes targeted a camp for people who had been displaced by earlier violence Ituri and neighboring North Kivu provinces are currently under a kind of state of emergency imposed by the president. Well, we'll move on to Egypt now, where we look at some environmentalists that are doing what we're going to look at them at what they are doing to stop pollution in their country. With the help of local fishermen, a recycling initiative is aiming to clean up to 500 kilograms of waste from the Nile each week. Let's take a look.
For 17 years, Mohammed Nassar has supported his family of 5 by fishing in the Nile River near the banks of a tiny island of Al-Qusayr, close to central Cairo. But the 58-year-old says fishermen like himself catch fewer fish every year as the Nile has become clogged with plastic bottles, bags and other waste. A local environmental group named Very Nile has asked the island's fishermen to use their boats to collect plastic bottles from the river. Very Nile says it buys the bottles at a higher price than the general market price on offer from traders or recycling plants. The initiative provides a sustainable solution for helping to clean up the Nile while providing an additional source of income for fishermen like Nassar.
Ever since the coronavirus started, everything stopped. Work at sea stopped. But this job helped us a bit. We come and collect about 10 to 15 kilos, and we get about 12 Egyptian pounds for them. It's helped us a bit, along with 5 or 6 kilos of fish from the sea. It's bearable.
Nassar, who made about 100 Egyptian pounds a day after 6 hours of fishing, can now make up to about 200 Egyptian pounds extra by collecting bottles. Another fisherman, Saeed Hassan, says cleaner Nile water means more fish.
Ever since this project was launched, our income has improved. Good things coming out of the sea also increased. At first, there wasn't much fish. Fish was very little. Now, it is increasing because the Nile is cleaner on the one hand. And on the other hand, fishermen have 2 sources of income instead of having just one source of income. A second source of income that helps them with their livelihood.
That's all we have for you on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke. Have a lovely day.